Okay, I'm waiting for the punchline.
There is no punchline.
This line hits me hard. It is the question I often ask myself when watching modern comedy.
Boo! 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 I'm not even in the scene!
In modern comedy, improvisation is everywhere. It prompts reaction, but very quickly the energy fades and nothing seems to resonate. I don't remember struggling with this back in the 90s. Comedy films used to be sharp and witty.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
What are we really talking about when we talk about comedy? Is it the reaction, the laugh itself, or is it the story behind it? In today's episode, we will review how comedy has changed over the past 40 years, why the comedy film market share continues to decline, and what's the key challenge for modern ones. Is comedy no longer enjoyable to watch, or it has evolved to something more sophisticated? Comedy films from the 90s took heavy inspirations from the 70s and 80s. The structure innovation, high-concept humor, and clever screenwriting from the 70s.
You feel that life is divided up into the horrible and the miserable, and the miserable is everyone else. So when you go through life, you should be thankful that you're miserable.
The creation of hybrid genre, physicality, and studio system from the 80s.
While we were sleeping late, hanging in on Saturday mornings, the Japanese took away our cartoon shows. I mean, when you saw Speed Racer, didn't something go, wait a second? Now the Germans are getting into sitcoms.
These all become the foundation for the comedy explosion of the 90s. So let's rewind a bit to understand how these transitions unfolded. In the 1970s, counterculture became mainstream. Think the Beatles, Joni Mitchell, and David Bowie. People were rebellious and politically aware. This mindset deeply influenced the comedy film style. Films and actors lean heavily into satire.
What the hell is this?
This is the bill that will convert the State Hospital for the Insane into the William J. LePetomane Memorial Gambling Casino for the Insane.
Gentlemen, this bill will be a giant step forward in the treatment of the insane gambler.
They address issues like racism, sexism, and traditional moral values. But unlike the 90s, they didn't rely on exaggeration or physicality to deliver humor, because strong satire required deliberate, control writing, and careful build-up to land the punchline.
I have a very great friend in Rome called Biggus Dickus. He has a wife, you know. She's called Incontinentia. Incontinentia buttocks.
That's why you often saw intelligent script carried out by sharp characters who use wordplay and subversion to deliver humor with a sense of detachment.
Have you, homosexuals?
You mean like flaming, or?
Well, it's a standard question we have to ask.
No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
Yeah, would they send us someplace special?
Actors like Woody Allen, Mel Brooks, and Gene Wilder all excel at this. And it wasn't just a Hollywood thing. Comedy legends like the Hui brothers in Hong Kong adopted similar styles. From script crafting and meta humor to parody and improvisational, these are the DNA strands perfectly inherited by the 90s. They are clever and biting, but not always for everyone.
Like New York Jewish left-wing liberal intellectuals, Central Park West, Brandeis University, the Socialist Summer Camp.
And then, things become messy and physical when the 80s came. Audiences' taste shifted. Bruce Lee has taken the world by storm, and action films were dominating because they are visually exciting. Comedy had to adapt. But we see some very distinguished developments between Hollywood and the East in comedy film styles. In the East, especially Hong Kong, Jackie Chan dominates the blockbusters with his kung fu comedy, a hybrid genre that blends martial art with slapstick. His movies were wildly original and deeply influential. He often began the story with his character at a disadvantage. This underdog setup is more appealing to the general public than the cerebral comedies of the 70s. Jackie also plays with tactile, using seemingly unrelated objects in his performance to create unexpected comedic effect. His choreography, camera work, and editing added an entirely new visual language to comedy. So it is no surprise that later actors like Stephen Chow took great inspirations from Jackie in their films. Meanwhile, Hollywood went for a totally different direction. Escaping reality becomes comedy theme of this era. The rise of situation comedy is maybe one of the reasons.
I don't get it. Why is it bad luck to burn a history book?
Because Melmacians have a great respect for books. If you destroy a history book, You cheat future generations out of knowledge of the past.
That's rather deep for a planet whose motto was, "Are you going to finish that sandwich?"
Hey, I don't make fun of your stupid planet, Electoral College.
But more broadly speaking, studios were willing to take risks and experiment. They blended comedy with other genres. Ghostbusters gave us horror comedy. Airplane gave us disaster comedy. These films surprised audiences and show how comedy can be totally different. That's why the 80s can be seen as transitional. It bridged the smart detachment of the 70s with the emotional absurdity that would define the 90s. You can still feel the script quality and sense of coolness from the 70s, but now, with more emotions, slapstick, and surrealism in the mix, the story is built on relatable truth with subversion. Actors like Bill Murray, Eddie Murphy, they became stars not just because of their lines, but because they're unique characters.
All my favourite people have done one thing well, forever. Woody Allen, same character. Bob Hope, same character. Groucho Marx, same character. Different situations. You know, even great actors, they play versions of themselves.
And this made people realize that a great actor can make all the difference in comedy. Another key factor was investment behind the scenes. With the rise of TV and VHS, studio systems like Saturday Night Live and Nickelodeon becomes the dream factory for many comedy actors and writers. Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, and others, they all start from here. So the 70s set the tone. The 80s brought inspiration and cash, and the 90s, let's just say,
let's rock this joint!
With the rise of computer graphics, comedy subgenres exploded. Cartoon comedy, sci-fi comedy, and even tragic comedy. They became edgier and more iconic, playing with audiences' expectation and genre convention. Think of Scream, Austin Powers, Home Alone. Honestly, who would have imagined an 8-year-old defending his house could become one of the top 3 global box office hits? But genre innovation wasn't enough on its own. To truly connect, you need full commitment from the performers. And this is where the studio system and situation cultures really paid off. They introduced fresh faces like Jim Carrey, Mike Myers, Will Ferrell, and more. Even Stephen Chow trained under Hong Kong's TVB studio system. These actors move away from traditional deadpan or clever subversion. Instead, they blended visual and linguistic contrasts, deprecate and animate themselves.
Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
Playing with exaggeration to deliver that absurdity and parody. So you see Mike Myers spoofed James Bond tropes. Jim Carrey contorted his face and voice into cartoonish absurdity. Stephen Chow and Ung Man Tat often spent hours observing people in the streets for inspiration. And Jackie Chan famously reshot scenes dozens of times to capture the perfect comedic moment, because they understand the importance of audience engagement.
And the most difficult thing is when I throw the fan and coming back, more than 120 tick. Those kind of scenes, oh, Jackie, good. It's not good. You can do it. Except, do you have the patience or not?
These performers share a terrifying commitment to make people laugh. And this is the spirit. Meanwhile, new cultural trends were rising. Early internet culture, video games, and office life. These trendy themes turned into comedy gold because they were relatable and fresh. By now, you can probably see the winning formula. More subgenres choices to the audience, maximalist performance by first-class multi-talented actor, and highly relatable topics and subjects. So by the end of the 90s, it looked like comedy was entering a golden age. But then, everything changed.
Hold on. Can we switch the language? We better hit it. So first, we need a historical event. Who's got an event?
9/11.
Okay. Maybe something else.
Just give it to me as a fuck you.
Right.
Try it, lay it on me.
Yeah.
Just do it. Come on, give it to me.
Well, I'm thinking.
Fuck me hard.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Come in.
Hey.
Hi, how's it going? What seems to be the problem?
I've contracted AIDS.
How did you get that?
From an African prostitute.
Do you mind if I interject for a second? Sorry, I just think it's getting quite heavy, this sketch, and I just wonder if perhaps, just for the sake of comedy, you might not want to have contracted AIDS from an African prostitute.
What you just saw is called improvisation. Simply put, it's unscripted performance. Actors create dialogue spontaneously in the moment. It allows them to break free from written lines so that they can deliver more authentic and raw reactions. And it has become the dominant form of comedic acting in the modern era. But improvisation wasn't born in America. It is often traced back to Italy, gained traction across Europe, and eventually find its strongholds in Canada and the US. Pioneers like Viola Spolin, Del Close, and Charna Halpern bring improvisation to the public. In the 1960s, Chicago's Second City became the birthplace of modern improvisation, and it was also the prime recruiting ground for Saturday Night Live.
I think Chicago is still probably the best place to get started in comedy.
And that's true not just for stars, but also several hit sketches.
Eventually, everything clicked, and SNL turned improvisation into a television institution in the late 70s. Characters like Ed Grimley, Hans and Franz, and the Church Lady emerged directly from improv roots. Meanwhile, in film, directors like Christopher Guest and Judd Apatow brought improvisation to the big screen, creating genuinely funny, unscripted moments that audiences loved.
What is she doing?
Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Don't do that!
What am I doing?
Don't fart in the bed!
I'm not. It's the springs.
This is why we never have sex. That's disgusting. You're gross.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're so... God!
From short-form scenes to long-form narrative structures, improv proved itself as a versatile, powerful comedic tool. To this point, everything seems legitimate and makes sense. We find a remarkably versatile genre to make us laugh and think. But then the digital age arrived. Social media changed the game and turned this nimble kitty into a wild beast. Platforms like YouTube, podcasts, TikTok, and Instagram allowed creators to produce improv content with almost no budget, no gatekeepers, and no filters. But here's the twist. Most platforms now prioritize short-form content, and that changes everything. Compared to traditional comedy films, these short clips demand a completely different rhythm. There's little room for setup, no time for narrative arcs. It's all about the instant reaction and dopamine rush.
Right, this is very different than being obsessed with food or obsessed with cleanliness.
There's no payoff.
Right, exactly. There's no anxiety relief by carrying out the compulsion. With OCD behaviors, like scrolling social media, the dopamine quickly wanes, and then you find that you're just sort of, and we've all been there, you're scrolling, you're like, why am I doing this? This isn't that interesting. This isn't that interesting.
And this brings back my point.
I think there's a big difference between comedy and sense of humour, and I think that a comedian's job isn't just to make people laugh. That's easy. That can be a reflex. I think it's about making people think about it and why it's funny, and I think comedy is about empathy.
From a market standpoint, comedy is thriving. Comedy content drives the highest engagement on social media. 76% of Gen Z say they want more funny contents on TikTok, and 78% of successful comedians now work across 3 or more media formats. Clearly, people still love to laugh. Comedy hasn't disappeared, it has simply evolved. So now, let me ask you, do you miss the crafted absurdity of 90s films? Or do you embrace the chaotic charm of short-form improv? Let us know in the comments.
Comedy is subjective, Murray.
And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe, share, and click like. Thanks for watching.